Now your host, an advocate for the people and our Constitution, Denise Mraz.
Hi there out in KKVV land. Boy, what a crazy week it has been. As you know, we're Peace Through Constitutional Truth, Vegas Views, and this month we're doing our Ignite Freedom campaign. And how that's going, you let me know. Call in, okay? I wanted to talk to you today about Federalist number 4. This is concerning dangers from foreign force and influence. Now, as you know, it has been widely reported that most of these rioters and protesters are paid. They're paid by people who are anti-constitutionalist and want a foreign global world government. You can't get more foreign than that for influence. They have taken a possibly even a false flag. We'll know in 3, 4, 5 years from now what's happened, but they're using a race war to usurp the United States Constitution, throw us into martial law, and of course the shut down 6 governors are the most interested in keeping their state shut down over the riots. And a neighbor of mine called 911. She heard gunshots, and would you believe that the police told her that there weren't enough patrols to come out to her house, and that she was going to have to protect herself with whatever means available. So I think that if people out there have decided that they don't want to arm themselves, that now might be a good time to think about it. Even if you can't shoot the person, if you couldn't bring yourself to shoot somebody in your house because you feel that you don't have a right to protect yourself, well, then maybe you could do it for God, because everybody is called to vigilantly oppose any ending to their life prior to the natural one, which should be, of course, when we're old and gray and have a lot of, creaks in our bones. So I'm just saying, if you haven't thought about it, think about it now. Precision Armory down on Blue Diamond is got a great shooting range. There's shooting ranges throughout the county, and get yourself armed, because if this continues to happen, patrols will continue to not be available, and calls to 911 over whatever, you're going to have to take care of them yourself. So how do you want to do that? With prayer, with kitchen knives, or do you really want to have the ability to protect yourself if a home invader came in? Because that's what's going on. There have been HOAs reporting break-ins. There, gated communities, communities with no gates. Normally quiet suburbs are starting to see activity and, cars where they normally haven't seen them. So think about it. Anyway, back to Federalist number 4. The same subject continued concerning dangers from foreign force and influence. And this was authored by John Jay to the people of the state of New York. My last paper assigned several reasons why the safety of the people would be best secured by union against the danger it may be exposed to by just causes of war given to other nations. And those reasons show that such causes would not only be more rarely given, but would also be more easily accommodated by a national government, that either by the state governments or the proposed little confederacies. So remember, back in the day, the 13 colonies were actually 13 small nations that came together. But for the safety of the people of America against dangers from foreign force depends not only on their forbearing to give just causes of war to other nations, but also on their placing and continuing themselves in such a situation as to invite hostility or insult. For it need not be observed that there are pretended as well as just causes of war. Okay, so I've just read you a document from the 1770s, and it's now 2020. Nothing's changed. There have always been pretended causes of war. And that's exactly what's happening and will continue to happen with false flags and excuses for things happening. Now, let me just continue here. It is too true, however graceful it may be to human nature, that nations in general will make war whenever they have a prospect of getting anything by it. Nay, absolute monarchs will often make war when their nations are to get nothing by it, but for the purposes and objects merely personal, such as a thirst for military glory, revenge for personal affronts, ambition, or private compacts to aggrandize and support their particular families or partisans. These and a variety of other motives, which affect only the mind of the sovereign, often lead to engage in wars not sanctified by justice or the voice and interest of his people. But, independent of these inducements to war, which are more prevalent in absolute monarchies, but which well deserve our attention, there are others which affect nations as often as kings, and some of them will on examination be found to grow out of our relative situation and circumstances. And the Federalist paper here, number 4, goes on to state rivals in fisheries between France and Great Britain, set off wars, duties on foreign fish, navigable waters among China and India, the extension of commerce by vessels. For Spain, thinks it's convenient to shut the Mississippi against us on the one side, and the Britain excludes us from the St. Lawrence Seaway on the other. So they won't permit mutual intercourse and traffic through the waterways. So nothing's new, nothing's been changed, and that's Federalist 4 in a nutshell. And then let me just here scroll down to number 6. Number 6, concerning dangers from dissensions between the states. The 3 last numbers of this paper have been dedicated to an enumeration of the dangers to which we should be exposed in a state of disunion from the arms and the arts of foreign nations. Here again, foreign nations. What comprises a foreign nation? Okay, so I'm going to divert from a minute from reading this. I wrote an article this week. On Monday, last week, I happened to be browsing the internet for some article information, and what do I come across? UNNWO.org. Now, most people have been fighting like the third monkey on the Noah's Ark that the conspiracy theory of New World Order and globalists taking over everything, including our planet, and who are the globalists, we know some of their names, that this is all a big conspiracy theory. Okay, well, let's go back to the CIA. The CIA started the rumor of a conspiracy theory so that people who didn't understand the underpinnings and didn't want to hear the truth or didn't have a capacity to connect two dots were given a label. And the label is conspiracy theory. So if you don't understand something, call it a conspiracy theory. If you don't agree with it or that it's outside your narrative, call it a conspiracy theory. Well, Wikipedia, even this last Thursday, had on their website that the New World Order is a conspiracy theory. Really? Okay, well, I put that in my article, screen captured it, and the next thing I went back to the UNNWO, United Nations New World Order.org. So this website, it was reserved in the 1980s. Okay, so if you tell me that you don't think that this was all pre-planned, I think we can pretty much point to the fact that UNNWO.org was reserved by the United Nations as a website in the 1980s. So that's just one clear fact. But the other thing is when you click on it, what does it say? It says we are going to take back our planet. Those are some strange words, because who would be taking back a planet? The planet belongs to everybody. All the humans that were put here by God, the created of the Creator, under His moral authority. So who's taking back the planet? Are these people just literally foreign national aliens who are alien to the world sovereignty message for Trump and nationalism? And that message is every nation for themselves, just like an adult and a child on a plane getting oxygen. The adult gets the oxygen first, the child second. Sovereignty. It's all about sovereignty. It all comes down to sovereignty. So anyway, I just wanted to, you can look that up, United Nations New World Order. It's no joke, and it's not a conspiracy. But of course, Wikipedia hadn't had time to change their page before all that happened, and Ice Cream captured both. So how long has Wikipedia and other quote unquote fact checkers been calling New World Order a conspiracy theory? So I'll just go back here. Let's see, I wanted to see. Okay, a man must be far gone in utopian speculations who can seriously doubt that if these states should either be wholly disunited or only united in partial confederacies, the subdivisions into which they might be thrown would have frequent and violent contests with each other. Why? Because the nature of man. That's why. To presume a want of motives for such contest as an argument against their existence would be to forget that men are ambitious, vindictive, and rapacious. To look for a continuation of harmony between a number of independent, unconnected sovereignties in the same neighborhood would be to disregard the uniform course of human events and to set at defiance the accumulated experience of ages. The causes of hostility among nations are innumerable. There are some which have a general and almost constant operation upon the collective bodies of society. Of this description are the love of power or the desire of preeminence and dominion, the jealousy of power or the desire of equality and safety. There are others which have a more circumscribed, though an equally operative influence within their spheres. Such are the rivalships and the competitions of commerce between commercial nations. And there are others, not less numerous than either of the former, which take their origin entirely in private passions, in enmities, interest, hopes, and fears of leading individuals in the communities of which they are members. Men of this class, whether the favorites of a king or people, have in too many instances abused the confidences they possessed, and assuming the pretext of some public motive, have not scrupled to sacrifice the national tranquility to personal advantage or personal gratification. So you see, there's nothing new. Everything old is new again. No, it's all the same story over and over. And this Federalist paper also talks about the Peloponnesian War, and you can read that on your own. It talks about some ambitious cardinals, which we know. Um, the Catholic Church, I mean, look at the beginnings of the Catholic Church. The Vatican was born out of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire fell. Why? Because of the 22 reasons of debauchery, um, the raping of the people, pedophilia, all of these things that are so anti-constitutional to a person's sovereignty to be secure in their life, liberty, and property. So here we have the rise of the Vatican, which some say is from Islam. I have looked into that. The Moors, the Barbary pirates from the Barbary coast, had were the radical Muslims, and the Catholics were essentially the moderate Muslims, but they're um, they're following the King James version of the Bible, which at that time had all its books removed, 17 books, and I'm pretty sure that those books were all about sovereignty. And I'm still kind of looking around into that. I've had a lot of projects going on. I work on political campaigns, and 'tis the season. We've got a lot of happening there. In fact, we have Kamau Bakari meeting with us in about a half hour. He's going to stop by the studio, and he's running for CD1. He's going to talk about race wars. But going back to all of these things for this Federalist paper, let me just say the something. Oh, commercial republics like ours. Commercial republics like ours. Okay, here's something else. Diverting again. Commercial republics. Constitutional republics, yes, and commercial republics. The word republic, that is a word about sovereignty. Okay, we're not a democracy. So, for the people who understand that the Democrats stand for democracy, no. Those are two totally separate things. The Democrats of the United States of America are the Nazis and the Communist Party. Let's just clear that. They are no longer just for the working class. They're no longer people who are all for one for all. They're not just people against the rich because they are the rich. The leadership of the democracy is the richest of the globalists. But the Republicans have really risen up and become a better party. But here in Nevada, they're extremely weak. That's changing. So I hope that you'll look at your Republican candidates and maybe even switch your voter registration over to be Republican. But anyway, back to this Federalist Papers. Commercial republics like ours will never be disposed to waste themselves in ruinous contentions with each other. They will be governed by mutual interest and will cultivate a spirit of mutual amity and concord. So let's just look at some of the world global governance contracts. The United States was paying way more than its fair share, which is why Trump cut that money off. He cut off money to WHO in the last month. He cut off money to other organizations that were supporting WHO, and he has dispersed those funds to private enterprise to come up with cures, vaccines, safe and effective pharmaceuticals that we can trust. And they won't be made in China, they'll be made here. So those are all things that have happened. But again, we have had this constant underpining of foreign influence, foreign interest, and telling us, that, well, you don't need manufacturing here in America. Yes, we do. We do need our own manufacturing. You don't need to make your own pharmaceuticals. Nope, Trump changed that. He has totally flipped the supply chain. We have some things coming from India now, which are safe. And we also have, again, that private enterprise. We did have pill and drug manufacturers here in the United States that are already starting to create a backstock and reshore up our supply chain here. So back to this. Is it not, we may ask, these projectors in politics, the true interest of all nations to cultivate the same benevolent and philosophical spirit? If this be their true interest, have they in fact pursued it? Has it not, on the contrary, and invariably been found that momentary passions and immediate interest have a more active and imperious control over human contact than general or remote conduct than general or remote considerations of policy, utility, or justice? Have republics in practice been less addicted to war than monarchies? Are not the former administered by men as well as the latter? Are there not aversions, predilections, rivalships, and desires of unjust acquisitions that affect nations as well as kings? Are not popular assemblies frequented subject to the impulses of rage, resentment, jealousy, avarice, and of other irregular and violent propensities? Is it not well known that their determinations are often governed by a few individuals in whom they place confidence, and are, of course, liable to the tinctured by the passions and the views of these individuals? Has commerce hitherto done anything more than change the objects of war? Is not the love of wealth as domineering and enterprising a passion as that of power or glory? Have there not been as many wars founded upon commercial motives since that has become the prevailing system of nations, as were before occasioned by the cupidity of territory or dominion? Has not the spirit of commerce in many instances administered new incentives for appetite, both for the one and for the other? And let us experience the least fallible, gullible of human opinions be appealed to for an answer to these inquiries. So, let's just go back. In history, it says Sparta, Athens, Rome, and Carthage were all republics. Two of them, Athens and Carthage, of the commercial kind. Yet were they as often engaged in wars, offensive and defensive, as their neighboring monarchies at the same times. Sparta was little better than a well regulated camp, and Rome was never sated of carnage and conquest. Carthage, through a commercial republic, was the aggressor in the very war that ended in her destruction. Hannibal had carried her arms into the heart of Italy, to the gates of Rome before Scipio. In return, gave him an overthrow in the territories of Carthage and made a conquest of the Commonwealth. And then this just goes on to talk about Holland, Venice, Britain, and the popular wars of Austria and Bourbon, the royal wars, and so forth. So, this whole um, idea that we have of how we came to be, we really do need to go back to these Federalist Papers because this gives the history, the real history of the time, and then look back into this history and see, so that we don't repeat it, what we can change going forward. Because I do believe we have a very reasonable opportunity here. And, I know I've talked about Nasara before on our show, and I'm going to just click over to that in a minute. But Nasara is something that's so important because it gives you the blueprint for what's happening right now. And I've referred to it in a bunch of my articles on the blog. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, you'll have a framework to go back to. But if we don't start, so I'm gonna swear in a minute. So Warren, get ready. You might have to blink me out. Oh, and by the way, I was just gonna show the camera in case I lose this. Let's take our planet back. Who talks like this? But an alien, right? So what are they alien to? Um, let's see here. We've got, oh, Nasara. Yeah, so we're hitting here in Nasara. So, Ward, do you think Nasara is something that's out there to um, I'll call it the Q public? How deep do you think Nasara has gone? Do you feel like it's something that's been accelerated in its acceptance, or do people just really not know what it is?
Well, I do know you've told me about it, but I believe in my heart of hearts that we have been invaded by aliens many, many years ago, and they do take over the planet. They're the reason that some of the craziness is going on, and I believe they're going to they're going to either fake an alien invasion to freak everybody out. Something's in the works. This isn't over yet.
I agree. You know, do you think that Trump announcing so early that he'll be in Mount Rushmore for July 4th has anything to do with anything? I mean, and look at this. Last week we had the UN NWO get um, announced, but the media doesn't pick it up. Then the same week, Space Force has its first and very successful mission.
So they say. Did you see the astronauts' outfits?
They look really strange, don't
Yeah,
they?
and they didn't. They looked like stormtroopers, and
Mm-hmm.
there was no. They weren't airtight.
Mm.
They were very very lackadaisical. Looked like a motorcycle helmet.
I didn't pick up on that. I'll have to.
Yeah, check it out.
I will definitely check that out. Well, Nasara is interesting. So basically, Nasara gives us two um, things to look at. One is that the national economic security and Reformation Act, NASARA. Now, this was a law that was supposed to go into effect, and it originally had its roots in what JFK was doing with returning us to our gold standard. And that was to unwind that 1913 Federal Reserve Act. So the NASARA is the giving back of the funds to the people. And it's a law. So that says that it was passed in March 2000 and signed into law in October of 2000. I think that that timing sounds about right because when you look at the videos of the, I'll call it the old NASARA videos from 2006, 2008, it's kind of funny because George Bush Sr., being the head of the former, one of the big CIA guys, he had positioned himself as the one that is going to be giving back to the nation and particularly to us taxpayers all our funds that have been taken by the globalists that have been put in these layered trusts. So, Nasara, I'll just read you a few of these announcements. Forgives credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. Abolishes income tax. Abolishes the IRS and creates a flat rate, non-essential, new items only sales tax revenue for government. Increases benefits to senior citizens. Returns constitutional law. And that means that when they say return to constitutional law, we'll have our attorneys going back to school to learn constitutional law. And we'll be back in a minute.
Impact Radio, KKVV, Las Vegas.
Are you tired of buying a KN95 or respirator mask of questionable quality every time you go out, just to throw it out when you come back? There's a new and revolutionary face mask in town, manufactured in the U.S. GivingMasks.com is now offering cloth, reusable respirator masks for $45. And yes, they are made in the USA and are U.S. lab tested for quality and dependability. You can reuse them up to 60 times. No more buying and throwing out dozens of expensive masks. Giving Masks has a limited supply of these due to demand, but you can get yours right now by texting Better Mask to 77222. Again, text Better Mask to 77222 to order your higher quality, better fitting respirator mask. Giving Masks, where they have already donated over 2,000 masks to frontline workers in need. Text Better Mask to 77222 today.
Hi there, we're back. This is Denise Mraz with Vegas Views, bringing you peace through constitutional truth. And Warren and I were just talking about NASARA. So NASARA is a National Economic Security and Reformation Act. It was passed originally in 2000, and the idea behind NASARA was that we as a nation were going to return to our gold standard, and it had a lot of other pieces to it. So Warren, I'm going to just read the rest of these and we can just go down because it's going to be exciting in a minute, okay? And then I'm going to use that swear word that I talked about. Okay.
I trust you.
Creates new U.S. Treasury currency called the rainbow currency, backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals. Returns constitutional law to all of our courts and legal matters, initiates new U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law, eliminates the Federal Reserve System, restores financial privacy, retains all judges and attorneys, retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law, ceases all aggressive U.S. government military actions worldwide, establishes peace throughout the world, initiates first phase of worldwide prosperity distribution of vast wealth which has been accumulating for many decades, releases enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes, enables the release of new technologies such as alternative energy devices. So, I know you, Warren, have been a very stalwart follower of, I'll call it the independent news. And
Yes.
yeah, so let's just go back over it. There's like 20 points, okay? So, and I do want to just use that swear word right now. Do you want to hear what it is?
Go ahead.
The word sovereignty. Now, just think about this. think about all the things and all the people and all the systems and all the entities and all the programming that we have been trained and taught to deny us our sovereignty. And it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has attacked sovereignty. So let's go back to rewind the clock to July 3rd last year at the Jamestown 400th anniversary. Trump announced, "The people shall always reign. The people shall always rule. The people shall always be sovereign." And he made it a point to say that. And I'll never forget it because the word sovereignty, it had such a bad rap for so long. I mean, look at the sovereign citizens. They didn't have it all wrong, they didn't have it all right. But look at how the sovereign citizens, many of the things they were saying to people are coming to fruition, right?
Right.
So maybe, obviously, everything can be used for the bad that was originally good and it can all get hijacked. But let's just go down this list as a sovereign people. If we were to return to our sovereignty quicker than normal, which I think we will, I think something big is going to happen at Mount Rushmore on July 4th when because Trump has planned it so far in advance. So forgives credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. Well, we've heard a lot about that already, right? And then look at what he's done. He has made interest 0%, right? So we've checked the box. We're already starting to check some of these boxes. Now, is he going to forgive the credit card debt? Well, look at all the people that aren't paying their credit cards, and the company's going out of business because of it. And a business that's out of business, how are they going to collect your debt? Right? Abolishes income tax. Well, first of all, he moved the income tax. Then he moved it a second time. Then they have already announced some of the things that were in the income tax, like, oh, I know, having dinners and lunches and having food. They put that back in because remember Obama took it out.
Yeah, but the whole idea of income tax it's a lie
Yes,
because we are supposed to trade time for money,
right.
and that was it.
Yes.
So if that's a
So, but he's getting rid of it. So,
thank God.
yeah, so IRS is just essentially a collection agency headquartered out of Puerto Rico since 1951, right? Abolishes the IRS. Yep, I see it coming. And how I see it happening is that he has already discussed in 2018 and 2019 a national flat sales tax. Yay!
Yippee!
See, so he's already moving down this road. Also increases benefits to senior citizens. Okay, so last week I reported that senior citizens, they're having insult. One of the biggest problems with senior citizens is diabetes. They're having their diabetes medications. No more than $35 a month can be copaid by any senior. That's an executive order now,
Beautiful.
which is amazing because some people were in the thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I got the diabetes. I know.
See? So he's done it. Then what he did is he also announced $2 billion extra just for senior citizens last week.
Wow.
And of course, Nevadans will prosper from that. So there, I mean, look at all these boxes we're checking.
Yeah.
Returns constitutional law. Well, I will say that I think we've hit a little speed bump there, a road bump, because last week SCOTUS should have come down 5-4 for right to worship and that the churches should stay open, but instead the SCOTUS decision last Friday was that the churches can be closed to no more than 10 people, and that you can't have social distancing and all of this. I think there's something very fishy going on with that, and I'm sure we'll be hearing about it because Trump, when he heard about it, he tweeted out, and he's already made an executive order for churches to be labeled essential, and that was on May 22nd. And then this decision comes out 5 days later. So I think he's going to be revisiting that very, very soon.
Will we be able to go to church this Sunday since the casino's open on Friday?
I don't know.
Oh.
All I can say this is that I believe that now is a time for civil disobedience. And if pastors who are, by the way, lots of churches are receiving the PPP funds. Okay, so I'll give you an example. The Latter day Saints Church was given the opportunity to collect $54 million, and they returned it. They told them that they didn't want it. They got the letter, and they sent them back a letter stating that they didn't want the money, they didn't want government influence in their church, and they're returning the money.
Wow.
So let's see how that plays out. I'll probably have more information on that next week. And so here's something interesting. Establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after Nassar's announcement. So we know this, that the House of Representatives, Pelosi, has everybody working remotely. Why? To cover up for the fact that they're all on house arrest. Or some of them are going to Gitmo.
Wow.
Yeah. See how this is all working
Yeah.
out already?
Yep.
See, so I've been telling everyone for a year that we're going to have snap elections. Well, they're coming. I mean, Steve Sisolak is on house arrest. Plausibly.
Oh, I hope so.
Well, look at QAnon. QAnon stated that anybody who was a globalist, and Sisolak is a globalist, who was told the public would be let known that they were going to be getting the COVID. Well, what are they getting? They're getting a cold, and that their COVID certificate of vaccine identification was in the flu shot. So that was the identification. It was the biologic in the flu shot. So did Steve Sisolak just get a flu shot? Or was he really COVID exposed? Because if he was COVID exposed, allegedly by a woman who was in a government building prior to him being there.
Yeah, and it claimed that he tested negative.
Yeah. Monitors elections and prevents illegal election activities or special interest groups. So, I think the special interest groups, wouldn't it kind of go along with the fact that Trump just called Antifa a domestic terrorist group, and that all 56 U.S. Attorney Generals have they have already arrested over 1,600 people. It of course hasn't made the news, but that's part of the whole sealed indictment thing, right? So we have now this pathway, and who heads Antifa? Obama.
Yep.
Muslim Obama heads Antifa, and Antifa really isn't anti-fascist. It's for the fascist. They're calling us fascist. We're not fascists. We're Christians.
Right on.
So I mean, look at all these boxes we're checking on the Nassara list, and he's not even talking about it. Creates new U.S. Treasury currency, rainbow currency. Yes. Have you seen the new currency? It has been out on the internet, photos of it, of what was approved. But I'm putting in my request for General Michael Flynn to be on the $50 bill.
Yeah. He should be.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go through our picks. Who should be on the dollar bill?
Well, it shouldn't be George Washington because we had 8 presidents before him.
Oh.
He was the first president after the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. But there were 8 presidents before George Washington.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they won't tell you that.
They won't. Well, I'm going to be thinking about this, who I want to have on the currency. And you know what? We would love to hear from you out in KKVV land.
You should be on the dollar bill.
Let's. Oh, I get to be on the dollar bill. Oh, that's so sweet of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
So let's see. What's our number again?
Oh, our number here is 702-650-5588.
We want to hear from you who should be on the new currency, and then we'll make a list and we'll send it to President Trump. Okay, so we're going to initiate a new U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law. Check another box, Warren.
Yep.
Did we not do that on March 10th when we merged the Federal Reserve with the U.S. Treasury? I'm telling you, this Nasara, it's happening. Yeah, and Kamau Bakari for CD1 has just joined me. I'm so glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're just going through down our Nasara list, and we can do this next week. Oh, we're switching out balls. Okay, and then we're going to return constitutional law to all of our courts and legal matters. Well, I would say that some of that's already happening because the courts now are being conducted by camera, and people are just calling in. And I think that it's giving these judges an opportunity, instead of having an audience, to be more constitutional, because much harder now is it to sit in a court? Well, it's very hard because you'd have to go tracing around all the video, whereas before you could just go down to the courthouse and sit there and listen to it. Now, everybody, I think the accountability is much higher because it's all being individually taped. So normally in a court, there's no court reporters anymore.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you go to a court and you have a case, I've got a case in court right now. There's a bunch of criminals running around Las Vegas.
Stenographer, the lady.
Yeah,
they don't do that.
Yeah, normally, that's what you would say. Like, there's somebody there, typing or writing very fast. No, there's no stenographers. Everything's videotaped. But a lot of it, there's no microphone. So it's just kind of all open air in the court. Yeah. So now just think of how much more accountability there is, because everybody's got a microphone, because everyone has a tape, and you can go back to it because everyone's individually recorded because they're all calling in from these different areas. I know.
The people that call in, you can record them, all right. But the people in the courtroom, the testimony.
There's no courtroom. The courtroom is a video now.
Oh, wow.
It's like a
Oh, because of virus stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well,
hopefully that's temporary, though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But
so
maybe if it's better, maybe stick with it.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna continue on our Nasara thing next week. Oh, can you scooch around a little bit this way? Yeah, because we want to make sure that you're on camera. There you go. Okay, good. Yeah, there you go.
Looking at you right there.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of skim through the rest of these. So for Nasara, eliminates the Federal Reserve System. He's already got that covered. Restores financial privacy. Yes, this whole contact tracing and everything else, that's going to be going away. Retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law. Seizes all aggressive U.S. government military actions worldwide. Check another box. Look at all the troops we brought home. Look at all the bases we're, sizing down. Yes, we're establishing peace throughout the world. And that's what our show is about today, Vegas Views, Peace Through Constitutional Truth. That's what we're doing. We'll pick up on Nasara next week. And Kamau, you are a major voice on talking about why we have these race wars. What do you think's going on right now?
Well, the manipulation's going on through the media. They're taking sides, but we can counter that by having a conversation on race. It's way overdue. We have to discuss it. We have to get to the core of it. It's being exploited. Race. In my party, we take the position there's no such thing as a racist, because so-called racism is not rational. So as a policy, I don't accept irrational behavior as a policy.
Now that's the Independent American Party.
Independent American Party, IAP. We're the party that don't believe in parties. But we challenge the other parties to have a discussion on race. I know somebody, a white man, that will talk about race in a candid manner with me. So him and I on the same side, and we'll challenge any other black-white combination or whatever combination you want to have, and we talk about race. I think it's going to take that. We need like a white Rosa Parks, and this guy would be that. White Rosa Parks. Somebody to stand up as a white person and say, wait a minute, how can you say don't call you colored, and the NAACP says colored people, the last initials CP for colored people. There was an incident right here in this town, Clark County School District. They were talking about some white kids supposedly made a threat to black kids over the internet, and they had a big whole school board meeting about it. And the school board trustee, when she's talking about it, she referred to the black kids as colored kids. And man, the lady, an NAACP lady, got up and screamed, you can't call them colored kids. Well, CP stands for colored people. And I can't say colored people, but she backed down. You can't have white people, they can't continue to back down. What's happening with the riots? They've been emboldened now. It's going to get worse.
Okay, but let's just go back for a second. The riots are definitely predicated on alleged racism.
So-called, right.
Right. But most of them are paid.
Most of them what are paid? The rioters?
The rioters.
Oh, yeah. Well,
they're paid. So I'll clue you in, okay? I know
Okay.
somebody whose family works on the force. And
the Metro Force.
yes.
Okay.
And I'm getting calls 2 or 3 a day or, notes. Here's what the police have found all over the city. There is backpacks and duffel bags everywhere full of bricks, old weights from, like a gym on the ends of the barbells,
Yeah.
other things that are very heavy and small
Okay.
but easy to carry and flip, and arms, guns, in backpacks. They're just laying in these areas prior to being planted where they're going to have a rally, and suddenly the paid protesters come in, and they've recovered over 300 of these duffel bags, backpacks, and they just have all kinds of stuff, tear gas bombs, and they're just laying there.
Okay, the problem I have with that is, did they know that that the cop was gonna kill the guy and trigger all this? How would they know to put them out ahead of time?
No, so
when did
that
this-
happened like 10 days ago, George Floyd.
Okay.
This has all been happening every day since then. So
But
today's
how did they
the
know it
sixth
was gonna
day
be
of-
riots? I mean,
So
'Cause
this
they
is the
set
sixth.
it up.
Yeah, see, it's a
it's-
setup. So it's the 6th day of the riots. So when the police are trying to go to the places where they're allegedly going to have a rally or a
Yeah.
riot, they're sending out scouts in advance and finding all these items.
the cops are. They may piggyback on I believe there's some people who want to exploit the situation, but still race is at the core of it and should have a discussion. The thing is about they shouldn't protest at night anyway. The protest is in the daytime, legitimate. What are you doing at night? In the protest, the First Amendment, we petition the government, not Walmart, not Target. So the only legitimate protest would be in the daytime anyway, unless there's a government official and you're going and talking to them. They're in the parking lot where they're at a building.
For our redress of grievances.
Right, redress our
So-
grievances
so
to the government.
What you just said totally supports my view that it's all paid protesters.
Anything at night
because
is
it's
probably
at night.
illegitimate, right?
See, so
Yeah,
that's
I
an
agree with
excellent
that.
point.
Only the legitimate protests are going to be in the daytime,
Yep.
not at night,
And they're also
and they're not going to be violent either.
right. So we've had a lot of violence.
A lot of cops got shot.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think that police officer is still alive, but he's
But
in
he's in
grave
bad shape.
condition.
May not be
grave
a worker
condition.
after this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but they're not going to get a handle on it. They won't address it. Have you seen one? Mayor Goodman's only one in this Attorney General, and 3 elected Lombardo. It's in his line of work. But the Congress people, you need them to talk about it, come out front, make comments on this protest at night. Hey, holy cow, how is that legitimate? A protest at night? They won't touch it. I just can't imagine. These people are it's only going to get worse.
It is going
It's
to
only
get
going to get worse and going to do it again the next time the cop kills one.
'Cause they
But
keep
there should be
feeding
some
them out.
oversight for the cops.
So Warren, what were you saying?
Show him that picture, the one I just sent you,
Oh, okay.
because it's all been set up. This is a setup from.
It's
the
all been
gate.
orchestrated.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's being exploited. It's being exploited once it started. I don't doubt that.
So this is it's a text picture of,
Same one in Paris. Exactly the one here.
Oh, wow.
What's that?
It's a
And the
setup.
guy, George Floyd, and the cop,
Uh-huh.
they were friends. They worked
Yeah.
together for 17 years
In Minneapolis.
in a
What-
nightclub
what-
in
And in
Minneapolis.
fact, yeah,
What?
they worked together for 19 years. And
Oh yeah, the guy. He knew the guy.
he
Yeah.
knew the guy. And that attorney general's son just called for Islam uprising, and that he's siding with
Mitch-
Antifa.
Oh yeah, Keith Ellison in Minnesota
Keith
too.
yeah.
Well, here's the thing too. The lady Sheila Jackson Lee, the black lady congressman in Texas,
Uh-huh.
she called the attorney general in Minnesota a puppet, and the news just let it go. They ain't saying making out of it. That's what I mean. That's what I mean about how they take sides. If that had been one of the other parties, and one criticized the other, they would have jumped right on it and said, "Wow, he called you. What do you think about that? He called you a puppet."
Okay, so here, this is from our illustrious Senator Jackie Rosen on May 31st. The deaths of unarmed black men and women in law enforcement custody must end now. The use of excessive force by officers sworn to serve and protect us must stop. We are seeing righteous anger and pain in the streets across the country, from Minneapolis and Philadelphia to Reno and Las Vegas. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
They
that's righteous
they
anger and
smashed
pain.
they
Yeah.
smashed in the Reno Police Department,
That's
and
that's
she's
not righteous.
condoning it.
That's what I mean. She's gonna embolden them. They gotta do it again. That's not righteous anger. That's not righteous. You don't do violence and shoot people over
Right.
righteous anger.
How do we end the race wars?
We got to talk about it. We have to discuss race relations. We have to have a rational
Okay, so what
and
do we
candid
say?
discussion.
What do we say?
Well, for one thing, we got to have people on both sides and talk about it in front of people, in front of the public. It has to be recorded. I know a guy who will let us. We need to take place at a private property. We need to have a discussion at a private property so we can control who comes to it. For one thing, and we can allow certain video cameras. People can.
So how should we
videotape
start
it.
it off? What would be the first question?
First question is what we the premise from our angle is there's no such thing as racism.
I
Now,
agree
let's
with that.
talk about that. The people that believe in racism and racists that are throwing the thing around. Besides, the only racist are always white people anyway. I got a problem. White people got to quit going along with that. How come all the hate groups are white? How come nobody hates anybody but white people, but nobody hates the white people? There's no hate groups that are not white. How can you white people accept that? I don't hear any of them question it. Never. Hey, you know what? How come white people hate everybody, but nobody hates white people? Why is that? But no white person will question it.
Why do you think the African American, and that's another problem, right?
The name calling,
The
African American.
name call- Okay, and also we call them African first, American second. A lot of them are here 10, 12 generations.
Yeah,
It's not even, they're not even from Africa.
John
They never
Kerry's
even
wife,
heard-
Teresa Hines Carey, she's from Mozambique. She's an African American,
Because she's,
and she's a white woman.
yeah,
She's an African American.
yes.
But nobody will call her that. I say if anybody's African American, she's one.
I agree.
So you got to ask. White people have to speak up. And they
So-
don't speak up. That's why I said we need a Rosa Parks.
So-
Rosa Parks.
yeah.
A white Rosa Parks.
So-
And I know one.
Okay, well, we've got a minute left on our show today, so why don't we do this? Let's put it out there to the people. Invite us to your church, invite us to a gathering, and we would love to have this discussion there. And let's get some people together and get this solved.
Have somebody accept the challenge. How about Dina Titus? She's a congresswoman.
Yeah,
I'm
let's
running
ask
in
Dina
that race.
Titus, yeah.
How about Dina Titus? I challenge Dina Titus to talk about race relations. She's already white, so-called white. She finds find her favorite African American, and I get my white person, and we go at it and we talk about race relations. How about that?
All right, we'll do it. And this is Denise with Kamau Bakari at Vegas Views. See you next week.